Hi guys, and welcome to the channel. Today we are joined once again by Jonathan Smart, who is a partner at Insight Law, and I'm going to be asking John today a couple of questions on the sale of my property. So John, I'm not sure if you saw the videos before. I know you are a subscriber, an avid fan of our work.
Avid fan of the channel.
We put our property up for sale a couple of weeks ago. We've agreed the sale this week.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. So we're really happy with that. We've instructed a solicitor, who you may or may not know. What is the process from here on out from a seller's perspective?
Okay, so I suppose in terms of the initial steps, you've already done a few of those, and I'm sure your fans and your viewers would be well aware of them. In terms of, usually you'd instruct an estate agent, take the first step, and then looking at it from where you are now, which is you've agreed the sale, you would then usually, as you've said, instruct your solicitor. The agent would send out what's called a memorandum of sale, which is normally a page or two of paper outlining who are the parties to the purchase and the sale, and also the solicitors acting for them. And it'll also outline the way in which that's proceeding, whether it's cash, mortgage, or if a more bespoke property, something like bridging finance. And then that's where the ball would start rolling from that point then. So as you said, you instruct solicitors. They then send you out what's called a client care pack, which more commonly these days is dealt with on an email, which is a package and a document sent to you outlining the way in which that solicitor is going to act on your behalf, and then a few things that they're going to need from you. So what you usually receive is a couple of forms for you to fill out, which what we would call the protocol forms, property information form, which is lots of information about the property itself, and then fittings and contents forms, which is about things that are at the property, things that are staying, things that are leaving. So, your fixtures and your fittings as it pretty self-explanatory in that sense, but all of the stuff that you would.
We're talking about there, like if we want to leave the washing machine or the oven or the curtains or all that.
Light fittings, those sorts of things as well. Some of which you may want to take with you if there's sort of a bit of sentimental value or a little bit of cost value to them that you've added to the property. And then some you might be, prefer to leave. And very often with things like kitchens and things like that, things would regularly stay. But then if not, you'd often take them with you. So it's just forming that sort of contractual relationship between you and your buyer as to making it clear to what's staying and what's leaving. The
solicitor sent out the client care pack. The estate agents have sent the memorandum of sale.
Yeah.
Who's in the driving seat now in terms of getting this purchase over the line? Is that our
Good question. I suppose it's a little bit of a team effort, really. You kind of need everyone on the same page and everyone moving towards the same end goal. So I suppose you kind of got your estate agents who are in the driving seat because they're the one who can interlink all of the parties. And that would be from you to your buyer, to their solicitor, to the seller's solicitor, and also very often as well a mortgage broker as well. So there's quite a few people involved in the process who would be tasked with getting it progressed at the right stages and in the right timelines, really. Obviously, everyone has their part to play. So your solicitor has to get the client care pack out quite quickly. You then have got, a little bit of time to get those forms back to them. They'll be asking for things like certified ID or original ID. Like you said, the protocol forms, which they're quite lengthy documents themselves. And then inevitably, some other documents the seller solicitors will want you to sign and get back in terms of their instruction, making sure that it's clear how they're acting on you, the price for that, and the other steps in the process as well. So yeah, that would be the first step, is you instructing the solicitor, them getting the forms off to you, you then, getting them back quite efficiently to the solicitor. They then send the contract pack out to the buyer's solicitor, and they usually won't do that until they've got the instruction from you, because obviously that's when you formally instruct them, when you sign the terms and conditions. And then once the contract pack goes out to the buyer's solicitor, then the buyer and their solicitor start working from their side to make sure they progress matters effectively.
They'll be asking my seller solicitor different questions about the property, I guess, in terms of like, was there any work carried out? And then we would have to evidence that.
Yeah, so another good tip there, I suppose, would be to, if you have carried out any works to a property, whether that's windows, doors, often people don't realise that you do need building regulation certificate for a competent person for them. So what's regularly termed a fencer certificate, if they're fence regulated. And then also same for things like if you've had a new boiler installed at the property, electrical work carried out, they would also need some building regulations certificates to come with them. But again, anything else that you might have had done to the property, it's always worth keeping the forms and the documents, guarantees, certificates, so that when you then provide that contract pack, the buyer's solicitors, everything you can bundle up and give to them means that it spends less time going through the legal process because everything can be packaged up and provided to them at the outset rather than them waiting until they've read your forms and also their searches that they'll inevitably get in the next few weeks, which would then mean that they raise inquiries based on the results of that. Whereas if you've packaged up documents for them, then hopefully you'll cut off a little bit of time and they'll be a little bit more efficient through the legal process.
So efficient sale, all the works we've done, as soon as we've instructed our solicitor formally, we send all that and say, right, this is everything. Here's your EPC, here's your electrical certificates, here's your fence or window certificates. You've got that, pass that on to the buyer solicitor, and we're sort of all systems go then.
Yeah, so then it kind of takes the momentum across to the buyers and their solicitors who then need to review the legal pack. They will also send off for their searches, the local authority searches. So what you usually have is a local authority search, which is where they ask the local authority for any works that have been carried out to the property and a number of other questions in relation to the property. Things like, are the roadways adopted by the local authority? And lots of other questions as well. You know, it's quite a long document which outlines the legal nature at which the property is maintained, you know, and also works that have been carried out to the property as well. So that's why it's important to make sure you've got your forms, certificates and your guarantees, because they'll inevitably come up in the local search then. But yeah, so that's when the sort of it shifts across to the buyer's solicitors to get the searches, and then for the solicitors to review the forms, raise any inquiries that they think are necessary, and then you and your selling solicitor would also then reply to those inquiries to make sure that that progression keeps moving forward.
Cool. And what are we looking at in terms of time frame then? It's usually people say, 6 to 8 weeks. What does that, is that right?
Yeah.
Is that wrong? Is that COVID permitting?
It's the question that we probably get asked on every single instruction of every transaction is, how long is this going to take? And obviously it's impossible to ever know. And as solicitors, we're always naturally cautious people. So even if we did know, we'd probably struggle to sort of put a specific time on it, because what you don't want to do is overpromise and underdeliver. So if I say to you, we'll get it done in 8 weeks, and then lots of things throughout the course of this transaction are obviously outside of our control. So if searches take much longer than we'd expected, or the mortgage takes longer, or the inquiries, the other solicitors, different things, the local authority search can take longer. Any of those things can stall a transaction. Which means that rather than, you know, people used to historically say 6 to 8 weeks was about average, you know, people generally have said that it's probably a little bit longer than that now. Maybe you're looking at 8 to 12 weeks. And then, you know, I've seen reports throughout the course of COVID that have said we're actually looking at probably something more along the lines of maybe 16 to 20 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And that, you know, is probably due to a number of factors. Bottleneck in transactions where the market sort of crunched down and went quite quiet and then shot back up again once the lockdown restrictions were eased and lots of people wanted to move house and buy houses, and you know that sort of caused a surge in properties, especially then on the back of the SDLT holidays that sort of announced. So now you are looking at transactions taking a little bit longer. Added to that then is, you know, delays with things like mortgages, especially with the reintroduction of reduced rates now, or increased rates, the way you look at it. So before, I think it went down to generally about 75% loan to value during the course of the lockdowns, because obviously lenders were reducing their risk profile, and then now they've sort of gradually stepped that back up. But what we've noticed is that as they're stepping those loan to values back up, it looks like the lenders are asking more questions, taking more time, and it does seem to take longer. Obviously, I'm not the mortgage broker, so I don't know, and you're probably best placed to speak to one of them about the timescales in terms of mortgages. But from what we see anecdotally, it does seem to be taking a little bit longer to get some things through. And again, anecdotally, but with the higher LTV, the loan to value thresholds, it does seem to be taking longer again, probably because the lenders want more information, asking more questions. Maybe surveys are taking longer to get booked in because of that bottleneck. So yeah, a number of factors are sort of taking longer. Searches seem to be taking a bit longer. And again, solicitors are busy, generally speaking, so it can be difficult to make sure that they can probably progress things as quick as we'd all like to get it done. But hopefully things will start to sort of flatten out a little bit and ease then through this year as, you know, the stamp duty holiday restricts back down, and, you know, just the bottleneck of transactions hopefully starts to ease then through the year.
Yeah, sounds good. So if our buyer is a cash buyer,
Yep.
which to be honest, I haven't I haven't read the paperwork.
Okay.
I haven't checked. But if they are a cash buyer, that's advantageous to us in terms of completing the transaction more quickly because they're not relying on mortgage.
Generally speaking, it will be quicker. I think historically it meant it was much quicker, but I think now there are more regulations and rules in place that solicitors and estate agents, I suppose, have to follow to make sure that even though there is a cash buyer in place, you're still carrying out the correct due diligence and, you know, protecting the client in a, you know, one of the biggest sort of financial commitments of their life. Make sure they're still protected even though they're not having that mortgage put in place. So yes, quicker, but not necessarily let's get it done in 2 minutes and get it completed, as much as that's obviously what any seller such as yourself would want.
Yeah, definitely. All right, John, that's fantastic. Well, thanks for giving us a bit of a whistle-stop tour there of the selling process from a solicitor's point of view. That's really helpful and certainly given me a little bit of clarity on it. I'll probably have to rewatch this. Once I've uploaded it, I'll have to rewatch it again and be like, oh, okay, yeah, so that's what the client care pack's for.
I think patience is key throughout some of this. Organisation is key as well, in terms of getting the documents ready and prepared and everything organised and structured and set up so that, you know, as you go through those stages, you can help, you know, move things along quicker and more effectively than it can stutter sometimes if things aren't ready and prepared, really. So yeah, hopefully that
yourself, I guess.
Yeah, and helping the people, your professionals, you know, that you've got in place, your agents, your solicitors, brokers in place to make sure that things are there, really.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, brilliant. That's great, John. And hopefully we'll speak to you next week about buy-to-let sales.
Okay, no problem. I think we were going to look at maybe buy-to-let sales and buy-to-let remortgages.
Yeah, fantastic.
I think that's what we've got keyed in. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thanks,
Brilliant.
John.
All right.
Take care. Have a good week. Bye.
Bye.